The eerie chill of the mountain air wrapped around us as we arrived at the remote cabin in Big Bear, my boyfriend, his best friend, his friend's girlfriend, and me. The Airbnb was tucked away in the woods, surrounded by darkness and the distant calls of coyotes. The place seemed normal enough, considering its secluded location and the occasional rustle of wildlife. The first night passed without incident, but the second night would plunge us into a nightmarish encounter that none of us could have anticipated. 2 bedrooms meant the couples slept upstairs while a friend stayed downstairs. As midnight settled in, our tranquility shattered when our friend frantically banged on our bedroom door. Panic painted his face as he described shadows in the woods, motion lights flickering, and mysterious thumping sounds outside. My boyfriend, usually a rock of calm and logic, rose to investigate. He meticulously checked every nook of the cabin and even ventured outside, finding nothing amiss. Skepticism replaced our initial fear, and we gathered in the other couple's room, which featured a porch overlooking the woods through a sliding glass door. Little did we know, the night was about to take a sinister turn. My boyfriend, the pillar of strength, went to examine the last unexplored corner of the cabin. He pulled the curtain aside, and a guttural gasp escaped him. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. His eyes widened as he locked the door and backed away slowly. There, in the pitch-black woods, stood a large man, his gaze fixed on us. The sense of dread permeated the room. "Lock the door," my boyfriend instructed, and the weight of his tone made it clear that this was no prank. A surge of fear surged through me as I hurried to secure the door. The realization hit us: someone was watching, and we were not alone. We decided to stay together, eyes trained on the darkness outside, the fear palpable in the room. As the minutes crawled by, the oppressive silence was only interrupted by the occasional rustle of leaves. The summer night was uncomfortably hot, exacerbated by the tension in the room. 5 people crammed into a tiny space, wary of the looming threat outside. Refusing to open a window, we braved the stifling heat, determined to keep the unknown at bay. Anxiety gnawed at me, making it impossible to relax. My boyfriend, sensing my unease, tried to cheer me up. But the specter of the lurking figure outside lingered in my mind. As we lay in bed with the lights on, my nerves gradually succumbed to exhaustion, and sleep beckoned. Then, a sudden thud shattered the fragile peace. Startled, I shot up, locking eyes with my boyfriend. In an instant, the room plunged into absolute darkness. The power was out. Panic engulfed me, and I began to sob uncontrollably, gripped by an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. Unable to see anything, I fumbled as I tried to get out of bed, only to trip on the tangled sheets. My boyfriend, my anchor in moments of crisis, lifted me up. We groped our way through the darkness, clutching each other's hands, and stumbled into the other room where our friends were staying. Hysterical and trembling, I attempted to contact our Airbnb host, but our phones displayed a disheartening message: no service. Frantically, we tried reaching out to anyone who could help. A friend with a different carrier miraculously had 1 bar of signal. He connected with the local sheriff, who, in turn, transferred us to the utilities company. Desperation etched in our voices, we provided the cabin's address, only to hear the unsettling response: we were too far in the woods, beyond their coverage. Dread deepened as we considered the possibility that the man outside had orchestrated the power outage. Fear had a firm grip on us, and in a last-ditch effort to secure our safety, we dialed 911. Reporting suspicious activity and a power outage, we clung to the hope that help would arrive. Hours passed like an agonizing eternity. It was 3 a.m., and just when despair threatened to consume us, the power flickered back to life. Exhausted and relieved, we finally succumbed to sleep. The next day, we sought answers from the locals. Sharing our ordeal, we learned that a power outage in that area was unheard of, especially in the absence of a snowstorm. The peculiar circumstances only deepened the mystery. As we reflected on the events, the unsettling encounter with the man in the woods lingered, casting a shadow over what was supposed to be a serene mountain retreat. The aftermath of that night left us shaken, a collective unease settling over the group. The experience underscored the vulnerability we all share when confronted with the unknown. Sharing our story with the locals served as a cautionary tale, a reminder to remain vigilant in secluded areas, and prompted us to provide feedback to the Airbnb host to enhance safety measures. Despite the passage of time, the memory of that night lingers, an indelible mark on our consciousness. If there's a silver lining, it lies in the strength we found in each other during a moment of peril and the lesson that even in the most serene surroundings, darkness can descend unexpectedly. In the fall of 2011, during my freshman year in college, I found myself on an eerie adventure in rural Maine. It was a story that unfolded on a secluded road, 5 to 8 miles of dense forest on either side, leading to a mysterious property my then boyfriend was determined to show me. Already residing in the middle of nowhere, we ventured even further into the wilderness, driving until the signs of civilization disappeared entirely. Eventually, we halted near a subtle break in the trees, where an old, overgrown driveway was chained off with a weathered sign declaring it private property. Intrigued, we parked on the road and embarked on foot, navigating about half a mile until we stumbled upon an abandoned log cabin. The cabin, untouched by the electric grid, bore no signs of modernity. Devoid of electrical outlets, plumbing, and any connection to the outside world, it seemed frozen in time. My boyfriend informed me that the previous owner had left strict instructions in their will, forbidding any alterations to the property post-mortem, no agriculture, no major renovations, essentially leaving the land in a perpetual state of abandonment. We found ourselves at the back of the cabin, contemplating how to gain entry. The once private space had succumbed to the passage of time, with an entrance that invited exploration. Memories from that day have blurred, and I can't recall if we accessed the interior through the second floor or if we climbed a makeshift staircase. However, what I vividly remember is standing on a loft overlooking the desolate cabin's interior. A precarious perch with no railing, offering a dizzying 15-foot drop to the floor below. The cabin's sparse interior featured an old ironwood stove and a countertop. The absence of a sink or bathroom underscored its isolation from modern conveniences. As we explored, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were trespassing on a place frozen in time, its history lingering in the air. The loft, where we lingered, revealed a haunting scene, thousands of dead flies carpeting the wooden floor. The sheer volume of the deceased insects, undecayed and untouched by time, cast an eerie shadow over the abandoned space. I tried to dismiss the unease, attributing it to the natural entrapment of insects over the years. Still, the atmosphere became increasingly unnerving. For some inexplicable reason, my boyfriend decided this desolate, fly-infested cabin was the perfect setting to indulge in some recreational activities. He laid a blanket over the insect-ridden floor, rolled a joint, and settled in, seemingly unfazed by the eerie surroundings. I, too, took a few puffs, but the atmosphere intensified my discomfort, and I decided to put a stop to it. As we idled, I realized that the sun was setting rapidly, plunging the cabin into darkness. A sense of impending doom enveloped me, and I urgently conveyed my need to leave. However, my boyfriend remained nonchalant, preoccupied with rolling a cigarette and sorting through an array of belongings spread out on the blanket. Frustration and fear gripped me as I implored him to hasten our departure. Eventually, I couldn't wait any longer. Ignoring his lackadaisical demeanor, I fled the cabin and sprinted down the half-mile dirt driveway. My boyfriend followed at a sluggish pace, engrossed in organizing his pockets filled with a myriad of items he deemed useful for any situation. The fading light heightened my anxiety, amplifying the feeling that we were being watched by something malevolent. Emerging from the woods just before complete darkness set in, we reached the desolate country road with no streetlights. Despite my boyfriend's possession of flashlights, I couldn't shake the ominous feeling that clung to me. It wasn't just the absence of light, it was an unsettling sensation that lingered long after we left the abandoned cabin behind. In the aftermath, I questioned my judgment and why I allowed myself to be drawn into such a bizarre and potentially hazardous situation. The experience left an indelible mark, reshaping my trust in my then-boyfriend. Trusting one's instincts is paramount, and the discomfort I felt in that abandoned cabin reinforced the importance of prioritizing personal safety. In the end, the unsettling adventure served as a catalyst for re-evaluation. It prompted me to reflect on boundaries, communication, and the significance of intuition. While it may have strained a relationship, it also underscored the importance of prioritizing one's well-being, even when faced with the allure of the unknown. For my birthday this year, my thoughtful boyfriend surprised me with a reservation at a quaint cabin nestled in the woods of the White Mountains. Originally, our plan was to spend both Friday and Saturday nights there, but as fate would have it, we ended up only staying on Friday. There were peculiar occurrences that unfolded, leaving us with an uncanny feeling that prompted our swift departure. Arriving at the cabin around 2 o'clock on Friday, we lugged our bags inside. From the outset, an odd atmosphere enveloped the place, giving both of us an uneasy vibe. Despite this, we chose to keep our reservations to ourselves, determined to salvage a good time. Setting priorities, my boyfriend ignited a fire for the fireplace. Using a large knife, he skillfully shaved pieces of wood off the logs for kindling. However, an unexpected turn of events occurred when the tip of the knife snapped. In a peculiar tone, he remarked, "This will be much harder to stab me with later tonight." My perplexed gaze met his, wondering why such an unusual statement would escape his lips. Still, we brushed it off, intent on enjoying our weekend. The evening unfolded with us seated by the crackling fire, exchanging minimal conversation. A peculiar detail struck us: the TV was positioned right in front of a massive window devoid of any curtains. As the night encroached, we decided to distract ourselves by watching a movie, positioning ourselves in front of the unsettling, curtainless window. When bedtime beckoned, we ascended the cabin stairs to retire for the night. My boyfriend, gripped by an unexplained sense of foreboding, took it upon himself to barricade us in our room. Curiosity got the better of me, and I questioned his actions. He simply stated, "I have a bad feeling." With little room for argument, we drifted off to sleep, the barricade serving as an unsettling reminder of our shared unease. In the dead of night, a pressing need to use the restroom stirred me awake. The eeriness of the cabin intensified, dissuading me from venturing alone. Waking my boyfriend, he accompanied me to the bathroom. The sense of vulnerability lingered, permeating the quiet darkness. Before succumbing to sleep, I felt compelled to reach out to my best friend via text, expressing my discomfort within the unfamiliar walls. Morning brought relief, but also an inexplicable twist. Grateful for my boyfriend's company during my nocturnal bathroom excursion, I thanked him. To my bewilderment, he claimed that he had taken me to the bathroom after we had been intimate. I vehemently denied such an occurrence, insisting it hadn't happened. His conviction, however, remained steadfast, creating a perplexing rift in our shared reality. Putting the disconcerting night behind us, we decided to explore the beauty of the White Mountains. The scenic drive provided a temporary respite from the strange occurrences within the cabin. However, upon returning home around 1 o'clock, a weariness settled over my boyfriend. He announced his intention to take a nap, leaving me with a period of unaccounted time. During his nap, I found myself adrift in a sea of amnesia. Zero recollection clung to those moments, leaving me puzzled and unnerved. When my boyfriend awoke, a mutual understanding passed between us. Something was undeniably off, and we needed to vacate the premises swiftly. In a whirlwind of urgency, we packed our belongings within minutes, each movement fueled by an unspoken agreement that our departure was imperative. The unsettling nature of the cabin had taken its toll on both of us, fostering an undeniable need to escape its clutches. As we drove away from the White Mountains, the cabin shrinking in the rearview mirror, a sense of relief washed over us. The specifics of what had transpired remained shrouded in mystery, but our shared unease was palpable. The decision to cut our trip short was justified by an unspoken understanding that sometimes, intuition speaks louder than reason. Reflecting on that peculiar birthday weekend, questions lingered. What unseen forces had cast a shadow over our getaway? Why did the cabin, initially chosen for its charm, exude an unsettling aura? The enigmatic events served as a reminder that even in the idyllic beauty of nature, unseen forces can shape our experiences, prompting us to trust our instincts and prioritize our well-being above all else. It was late November in Pennsylvania, near the Appalachian mountain range, and the eve of the whitetail buck season. My family and I had gathered at my uncle's cabin, a familiar retreat nestled in the mountains where we'd spent countless weekends hunting and bonding. As tradition dictated, the night before the hunt was marked by revelry and spirits, both the liquid kind and the festive kind. However, feeling a bit disconnected from the raucous celebration, I stepped outside for a smoke break. That's when I heard it, a haunting blend of an animal in distress and an eerie laugh. Instinctively, I retreated indoors, my heart racing. As the night progressed, the older folks succumbed to the effects of their merrymaking, leaving me as the lone insomniac. I suffer from sleep insomnia, my mind a relentless racer. Amidst the quiet, the unsettling noise resurfaced. Disturbed, I eventually fell asleep. The following morning brought the excitement of the hunt, temporarily pushing the strange sounds to the back of my mind. After a successful day, we returned to the cabin, jubilant with the day's spoils. Evening fell once more, and the older generation resumed their beer-fueled celebrations. I, however, sought solace in my phone, oblivious to the unfolding events. A fellow hunter took an extended smoke break, prompting my dad to nudge me into checking on him. I ventured outside, only to find him standing next to my dad's car. A casual inquiry about his whereabouts turned into a spine-chilling realization: he had never left the cabin. As I stood frozen, a voice behind me uttered, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking for my playing cards in my truck." I turned around to see him approaching, but when I glanced back at my dad's car, the phantom figure was gone. Reluctantly, I confided in my dad, who dismissed it as a mere shadow, refusing to acknowledge the possibility of the paranormal. The next day brought a gunshot, signaling my uncle's successful deer hunt. We joined forces to clean and hang the deer, the communal celebration fueled by more beer. Once again, I found myself on the outskirts of the merrymaking. Later, my uncle mentioned an odd occurrence: missing chops on the grill, dismissed as a coyote's misdeed. As night enveloped the cabin, I struggled to sleep, immersed in games on my phone. The memory of the eerie noise returned, distant yet haunting. Forgotten until now, the feeding trough, a pit for discarded deer guts, became a macabre focal point. As the night wore on, the noise grew louder, and curiosity overcame fear. I approached the front door and peered outside. There it was, on all fours, voraciously consuming the entrails. My initial assumption of a coyote shattered when it stood up. Shadows atop its head hinted at horns. Paralyzed with fear, I dared not move, fearing it would charge at the door. The creature locked eyes with me for a few agonizing minutes before retreating into the darkness. Unable to contain my terror, I confided in my dad the next morning, hoping for understanding or validation. Instead, he dismissed it as imagination run wild. Left with a sense of isolation and an unshakable fear, I left the cabin, vowing never to return. In the days that followed, I scoured the internet for answers, searching for creatures that matched my unsettling encounter. Skinwalker, Wendigo, none provided a perfect fit. The incident continued to haunt me, casting a shadow over my nights. Time passed, my uncle eventually selling the cabin, but the fear persisted. Even now, I'm hesitant to gaze out my window at night, the memory of that unidentifiable creature etched into my consciousness. The mountains that once symbolized adventure and family now evoke a profound sense of dread. Whether it was a supernatural entity or a trick of the mind, the impact lingers. The denial and skepticism from those closest to me only intensify the isolation. I grapple with the fear, still unable to rationalize the inexplicable encounter in those Pennsylvania mountains. Growing up in Michigan, I spent my childhood surrounded by the vast countryside. At 18, one scorching summer weekend, my friends, including my boyfriend Tony, and my older brother Brad, decided to embark on a camping adventure. Tony's parents owned a cabin in Ludington, isolated by miles of dense woods and a personal lake, promising a weekend of uninhibited fun. The excitement escalated when Tony's friends brought a copious amount of alcohol, ensuring boredom wouldn't be an issue in this serviceless, movieless retreat. As the clock struck midnight, enveloping us in darkness, we gathered around a blazing fire, oblivious to the eerie silence that befell my brother. Intoxicated and carefree, we failed to notice his fixated gaze on a particular section of the woods. After 2 hours of laughter and chatter, my brother remained frozen, his eyes locked onto the wooded expanse. Concerned, Tony approached him. "Hey, dude, you alright?" No response. Brad's motionless state unsettled us all. His trance-like fixation indicated something was amiss. As we scanned the woods, we discovered the source of his distress, a dog, or so I initially thought. But logic intervened. There were no neighbors for miles, so where did this dog come from? As my eyes adjusted, I realized it wasn't a typical dog. It stood tall, towering at least 6 feet. A collective gasp echoed as realization dawned: this creature had no tail. Panic set in, and my brother's silent revelation struck fear into our hearts. "No tail," he hissed, eyes wide with terror. The realization hit me like a freight train, a skinwalker. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but before I could react, the creature emitted a putrid stench, akin to rotting meat, and unleashed a spine-chilling scream. My brother, now animated, began shouting native words at the creature. Urgency gripped us. I ushered everyone into the cabin as Brad continued his ritual, throwing ash at windows and doors, chanting protective incantations. The atmosphere inside was tense. My brother clutched a pistol, ready for whatever may come. Hours passed in silence, the gravity of the encounter sinking in. We fell into an uneasy sleep, waking to Brad hastily packing our belongings at dawn. Aware of the potential return of the skinwalker, my brother, with his knowledge of native practices, performed a blessing on the cabin. His actions spoke of a deep understanding, one born from a heritage that knew how to navigate the supernatural. The girls, still visibly shaken, received calming words from me as we left, the unspoken understanding lingering among us. To this day, we've kept the details of that night confined to our group. The unspoken agreement persists, a mutual decision not to delve into the horrors we faced. The incident has become a collective secret, an unopened box in the attic of our memories. Perhaps the fear of revisiting that night or the difficulty of putting such an experience into words has kept us silent. In the aftermath, the gravity of the situation prompted my brother to pack swiftly, an unspoken urgency urging us to leave. As the cars crunched over the gravel, Ludington retreated in the rear-view mirror, the cabin and its surrounding woods disappearing from view. The unspoken agreement not to discuss the events of that night lingered in the air. Reflecting on that harrowing experience, I've come to understand the significance of my brother's actions. His knowledge, rooted in our native heritage, played a pivotal role in confronting the supernatural threat. The rituals, the chanting, and the protective measures demonstrated a cultural connection that served as a shield against the malevolent force we encountered. Despite the passage of time, the unspoken agreement among our friends remains intact. The details of that fateful night, the fear that gripped us, and the collective trauma we endured have become a shared silence, a pact to keep the memories buried. There's a certain power in this silence, a recognition that some experiences are too profound, too unsettling to be vocalized. If ever the need arises to unravel the tightly wound memories of that night, seeking solace in the company of trusted friends or a counselor might provide a path to healing. In sharing our experiences, we not only confront the demons of our past but also offer cautionary tales to others who may find themselves in the midst of the unknown. The unspoken story serves as a reminder of the thin veil between the mundane and the supernatural, urging us to approach the mysteries of the world with respect and caution.